A disability is something that has a major impact on your life.
Every disability is different.
And it's never the same thing for two people. I am blind in my right eye totally and partially sighted in my left eye.
I was 18 years old. We were traveling way too fast on a gravel road. Broke my neck, my back.
My Asperger's syndrome and my cerebral palsy.
I have anxiety and depression. People would have no idea just talking to me.
Being independent means different things to different people.
I want to live in my own house. I want to pay my own bills.
Live independently and not rely on other people.
When someone is not able to live as independently as they can, it does have a detrimental effect on people's physical and mental well-being.
It's no complicated thing. It's just that people with disabilities want to be included.
Plenty of people get stuck in ruts when they feel like they can't overcome something in their life. That's where LIFTT comes in.
Living independently for today and tomorrow. LIFTT. We help people of all ages and all types of disabilities find the resources or acquire the skills to live as independently as possible.
We serve the southeastern 18 counties here at the Billings office. We have a variety of things that we offer. We can help with grant funding for adaptive equipment.
Maybe a home modification so they're able to access their home. We help people to find that funding.
Helping people apply for Social Security benefits.
Medicaid, Medicare, housing.
They have a peer support group. Peer support, I think, is key.
Sharing life experiences is one of the most powerful things to help people who might be new to disability, who might be struggling with their disability.
Youth transitions is kids that are transitioning out of high school. They need to learn those adulting skills. It might be rent an apartment, learn how to grocery shop, budgeting.
Help someone advocate for themselves in a school or an employment setting. One of our biggest strengths is providing folks with information and referral. If we can't help you, we hope to know who can.
A lot of times we'll have a potential consumer call in and they think that they just have one need, and it turns out that we end up finding 3 or 4 things we can actually do for them.
You can just come in and say, hey, I feel like I have this going on. Can you help me? And we can, which is so cool to me. I love that.
Most of us on staff at LIFTT have identified ourselves as having one or more disabilities. That is helpful in many cases.
It's easier to empathize with someone when you yourself have struggled with a disability.
This is what we specialize in. This is who we are, and this is what we do.
And it costs nothing to go to LIFTT. It's a nonprofit organization and they're there to help.
Somebody that was a consumer that was working with LIFTT was asked to do an art project. He visualized that the balloon helps to lift people up. And then it became the logo, and it's stuck.
There's been success on all kinds of levels.
It's really rewarding to have a consumer go, hey, I was able to do this by myself today.
We want people to live their best life as independent as possible.
Live as everyone else in society and live as a part of society, not apart from society.
Everybody needs help. Sometimes you just need a little more help, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay.
There's plenty of life to live still, and there's a way you can do it. Keep chipping away at it, little by little by little.
Knowledge is power. Let's share it, for crying out loud.
Send us an email, give us a call. We'll do our best to help.
We can definitely help figure out what your needs are and get started on that. We're one of many steps in the path to independence, and we're happy to be serving people here in the community.
Good day and welcome to Living Well in Montana. Living Well in Montana is a program of living independently for today and tomorrow, or LIFTT, as LIFTT as we like to call ourselves. LIFTT is what is known as a Center for Independent Living. We are a nonprofit center for advocacy and program services and resources that help people with disabilities live as independently within their communities as possible. For more information about LIFTT, I encourage you to visit our website at liftt.org or give one of our offices a call. We serve 18 counties in eastern Montana from 2 offices, one here in Billings, and that number is 406-259-5181, and we serve the eastern portion of our service area from an office in Glendive. That number is 406-948-8500. Our topic today, as the screen indicates, is sidewalks and ramps, specifically curb ramps, specifically within the city of Billings. My guest is Billings City Engineer Mac Fogelsong. And Mac, I'm just going to start there. Even for people without disabilities, but people with disabilities, sidewalks are, very important, so that, and people aren't walking in the street where there are cars and bicycles and other vehicles. But you'll notice particularly in some neighborhoods there are no sidewalks, or there are sidewalks some places and no sidewalks others, and the sidewalk picks up. How does that situation come to be? It's obviously not as simple as you build a road and you build a sidewalk.
Yeah, great question, and thanks for having me today. So a couple things, kind of a little history that we want to take a look at. So roll back in time, we used to build projects, and you could subdivide and create a lot for a home. At that point, that was purely a surveying exercise. So a lot of times from the past, we didn't have sidewalks that were constructed. So you had areas that didn't get sidewalks built. Another reason we don't have sidewalks in certain areas, as the city grows, in the past, maybe sidewalks weren't required in the county. So we annex property into the city, and maybe that area doesn't have sidewalks. So we end up with areas that are missing sidewalks. Now, currently, when we build new streets, we always include new sidewalks. And then currently, when you develop lots or build homes or build a new pizza facility, the sidewalk is constructed at the time of the home building. So moving forward, we're trying to get those sidewalks constructed with the buildings.
Yeah, fill in the puzzle. All right. So you say that new subdivisions, sidewalks, you also mentioned new capital improvement. Is that the construction?
Yeah, so new, when I say new capital projects, the city has a 5-year capital plan, and maybe we're going to redo a new street. A recent example might be Maloney Lane, that went from Elysian to Midland Road. And originally that was a county road. And part of it has sidewalk, part of it didn't. But we reconstructed the road, so we added the sidewalks as part of that project.
Okay. And so you mentioned in the notes you gave me earlier, missing sidewalk program, and again, what is that?
Yeah, so the missing sidewalk program, it's kind of a part of what I like to call our concrete program, which is a 3-legged stool. So we're looking at one, existing areas, what's missing sidewalk, and how do we get those sidewalk gaps met. We also look at what I call our chipper program, but we might have existing sidewalk where we need to, we have 2 panels that are offset. We might need to do a grind on those. And then we also look at, maybe there's a couple old panels from the 1940s that are, crumbling and, are a tripping hazard, so we fix those. But kind of rolling backwards to your original question, the missing sidewalk program, that's a program like, how do we get these missing gaps filled in? So that's a very specific program that we we fund every year.
Okay. And again, like every city program, I've sat on advisory groups for the city, and these are all well-considered projects. What are some of the priorities for the missing sidewalk program?
Yeah, so priorities, probably the number one priority that we look at right now. We have two recent plans that were done for middle school and elementary schools, and those are what we call the Safe Routes to School plans. And those have identified certain areas of missing sidewalk or potentially even a trail that connects, school children routes to the schools. So we have a priority to do those. We also receive periodically, a resident that says, hey, there's a little chunk of sidewalk missing here. How do we get that done? So we look at that. We also prioritize sidewalks on our major arterials, to keep people off the major streets, those as well as our collectors. The other thing we look at are sort of high pedestrian areas. If we have a high pedestrian area, there's a missing sidewalk link, that would hit the priority list as well.
Right. Okay.
And I'll tell you kind of a trick, but one of the ways that we have the plan that we prioritize, but we also say, well, okay, one good way to look for these areas that are high pedestrian areas, sometimes you might be what I call a rabbit trail. Then you might see a pedestrian path through the grass that's well worn, and it's like, okay, there's a place that folks are using. And we also look sometimes in the winter, because you see lots of pedestrian tracks that might be off-road, if you will, and it's like, there's a spot.
The footprints in the snow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting that you guys are out there looking at all of this, and as well as the the more formal data that is collected. Sort of the inspiration for this program was a piece that you and I were both quoted in on KTVQ, and the young woman who was sort of the feature of the piece is a LIFTT consumer and a member of our peer mentor program. And she took the reporter out along her daily route to the bus. She's a wheelchair user. And again, that brings me a question about design of sidewalks. Even when there are sidewalks there, if they're older or they're, there's some, so how do we design sidewalks to be as accessible as possible, I guess? Yeah,
we have some requirements that we look at. There's federal codes, and then we have some city drawings that we follow. And generally, if I was to summarize, those look at slopes, and then how you get from A to B, that you're able to traverse those slopes without being steep cross slopes and those kinds of things. So those are some of the design requirements. We also tend to, our base case of preference for sidewalk is a boulevard sidewalk, so that keeps people separated from the curb.
Right, that's the sidewalk and then the grass and then the curb.
That's the space between the sidewalk and the curb. Generally that's 3 to 5 feet. So we tend for that, and the reason why that is, not only does it keep the pedestrian or the, in the case of a kid biking on the sidewalk, away from the roadway. It also allows a place for snow removal, that when you remove snow from the road, it's not piled on the sidewalk. So that's the other sleeper in that.
Or vice versa. Yeah, because I live in a neighborhood that was constructed in 2004, and there's, again, along the, I think you'd call it a collector, 38th Street West, between Grand and, well, it dead ends because of Poly Vista Park, but there's a boulevard sidewalk, at least on one side of the street. I'm not sure there is on the side that my corner is on, and then on 38, or then on Avenue D itself, there's not a boulevard. And one of the things I've heard people notice, and I don't have a problem with this, and I think if I remember the ADA correctly, it's done within the parameters of the ADA, is people talk about things in the sidewalk, whether it's signs or mailboxes or
obstructions, if you will. Yeah.
What are the, I mean, obviously people need to put those somewhere, but I mean, I've noticed the city put a sign sort of on the corner of my lawn as opposed to in the sidewalk, which is must be what you
Yeah, and
guys
so that's
do.
another, so kind of circling back, that's another benefit of the boulevard. So if you had
Right.
let's say somebody puts their garbage can out on Monday, that there's
Right.
a space there to either, once the garbage picked up, then the garbage
Yeah.
can at least can sit in the boulevard.
Right.
Or let's say there's a no parking sign that needs to
Right.
be somewhere. Well, that sign fits in the boulevard, and doesn't fill up the space for the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mailboxes are another one that those can go in the boulevard.
And that's good. So again, and it doesn't always, we both know it, that there has to be sort of community buy-in and stuff. I don't want to pick on any specific situation, but I think we can both think of one in recent years up in the Heights where people weren't necessarily opposed to the sidewalk, but weren't understanding what the requirements were and why they, because they had a sidewalk there and now it was going to be made ADA compliant amongst other things.
Sure.
Yeah, so what is the sort of, and you guys have a 5-year plan, which is the genesis of the Q2 article.
Right.
So what is that 5-year plan, and how do we, educate the community on what's coming and why it's coming, I guess?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons for doing a 5-year plan is that we can then communicate, like,
Right.
this year, for example, City Council just last night passed the fiscal year 25 sidewalk package, if you will.
Okay.
So we're doing some sidewalks over near Meadowlark School, and then we're also doing some in the Heights near Bench Elementary.
Okay, so going back to the safe routes to school studies.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so those are some areas that we're missing sidewalk as part of the priorities, and then communicating already. Where are we going next year? And we have periodically, constituents that say, hey, I need this missing piece of sidewalk. So we try to communicate that plan through council and through various organizations.
Okay. So from about, you've got this fact here that for a budget of $30 million on the safe routes to schools, about 10 of it is.
Yeah, I was trying to. So we have a whole host of safe routes to school things that we need to do. Some
Right.
of those are pedestrian crossings. There might be school zones that we're going to install various things. But of the whole safe routes package, 2 of the tools would be adding missing sidewalks
Right.
and or some trails in certain strategic locations. And I thought, hey, out of the proposed sort of $30 million to-do list, of that, probably $5 to $10 million is missing sidewalks
Okay.
or missing
And
trails.
again, pedestrian crossings are another thing that the disability community
Correct.
has. I think it was you. At our old building? Did you come down there and we took you down to the corner of Grand and 13th once?
That was probably someone else in our office, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm aware of
Yeah.
the location.
And again, now we're using part of that site as a thrift store,
Right.
and we've got our main up. And even crossing at 13th and Crawford is interesting sometimes because the Met bus was kind enough to put a stop on the number 3 bus right in front of our building, but there is no signal there, and it's interesting, and we know that there's priority places to place. I can't remember what those don't walk signals are called, but
Yeah, kind of the pedestrian
crossings. And,
Yes.
and there's obviously one at Park Hill, and there's obviously one at Poly. So we do make it work, but it's interesting. So again, this is always the biggest thing, is that how is this paid for? I mean, through obviously there's tax money involved, but how is that tax money allocated?
So I would say that it's paid for in two ways. One via the city has a piece of that. So let's say we're going to go build a new piece of sidewalk. The city has a piece of that potentially through gas tax funds. So we budget for that annually.
Okay.
And it depends. Like if we have let's say a corner residential lot where we're building sidewalk on two sides, generally the homeowner pays for the piece of sidewalk that would be on their address side, and then the city picks up the side that is sort of on their non-address side. So it's I would call it kind of a cost share world. And then in the case of commercial properties, they pay for their frontage, whether that frontage is on a corner or a non-corner lot.
Okay. The other sort of piece of the puzzle here, and we've got about 6 minutes or so, are curb ramps. And some people watching may not even understand exactly what a curb ramp is, so maybe we start with what that is.
Yeah, so a curb ramp is just that if you've pulled up to you're walking along the sidewalk on a particular street, it's that sloped portion that gets you down from the sidewalk level down to the street level in order to cross the street, and they usually have a slope to them. A lot of times you'll see they have those detectable panels at the bottom so that when you're entering the street there. But that's generally a curb ramp, and it gets you from the high sidewalk level down to the street.
Okay, and the city does have a program, again, sort of the impetus of which was a Department of Justice settlement in the early 2000s, to go around and add curb ramps where they need them and repair ramps where they need them. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so similar to this is a capital project sort of line item in the budget, but annually we spend, specific to the program, we spend about a $250,000, and we go in and look at areas that are maybe missing a curb ramp, so we add those in. We may have individuals in a particular area that say, hey, there's a missing curb ramp here, or we may, with the missing sidewalk program, where we're connecting areas with new sidewalk, those don't have ramps, so we add those in. We also add, in addition to that $250,000, we also are, with new capital road projects, we're adding curb ramps in with those projects as well. So there's quite a bit of, every year there's lots of new curb ramps or sort of fixes to old ones that's going on.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, the ADA and curb ramps are interesting within the disability community because you talked about those things that people, some folks in the disability community want things that really stand out, and some folks are afraid of tripping over them. And so it's when you get transportation advocates in a room, it's an interesting conversation sometimes. But I think what the city does here, for the most part, is particularly they follow the updated guidelines, which and then within the guidelines there are updates, and so it's an interesting process, and I think it helps from the point of view of advocacy. It helps us to know what you guys are thinking, and how we can, be of assistance. Is there obviously the city can't be everywhere all at once, and we don't have, we're not Orwellian enough to have security cameras everywhere nowadays. But so if a citizen sees something, and it's not necessarily that they want to complain about it, but they see something that they think the city should know about, how do they go about?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I really believe that sometimes the best, without just walking every square inch of the city and look, sometimes the best eyes on the ground and boots on the ground from people who live here. If they see something, feel free to call the city engineer's office and say, hey, looks like this corner might need some attention, and we can come out and take a look at that, document that, and a lot of times those sort of boots on the ground efforts, get added to our plan.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. And the city engineer, do you have a phone number and a website, something?
Yeah, we have a Public Works, City of Billings Public Works website that's on the city-facing website, and then our phone number is 406-657-8231.
Okay. Well, that's great. Again, thank you, Mac. It's been very educational, and again, it's now most cities, even small towns, go through some sort of process like we do here in Billings. So it is, interesting for beyond Billings throughout our service area. And thank you for taking the time. And this has been Living Well in Montana, a service of living independently for today and tomorrow. We are a center for independent living. We advocate for resources, programs, and services that support the independence of the aging and the disabled within our communities, which consists of 18 counties in southeastern Montana. For more information, I encourage folks to visit LIFTT.org or to give us a call in Billings at 406-259-5181 or in Glendive at 406-948-8500. My name is Jed Barton. Thank you and good day.